What's your name and what's your relationship to me?
My name is Shania Singleton. I am Cheyenne Singleton's older sister.
Where are you from?
I'm from Elgin, Illinois, which is roughly an hour and 30 minutes away. And I'm currently living in Chicago, Illinois.
Which neighborhood?
Holy City, the West Side. That's what it's known as.
How long have you lived in Chicago?
Lived here roughly 4 to 5 years, maybe longer, but 4 to 5 years.
What role do you play in your community?
I volunteer. I volunteer sometimes. Sometimes I volunteer at a pantry. Volunteered at nursing homes. We've done a couple breast cancer events. Just a lot of things here and there. Really small, but they mean a lot to people.
Okay. So what is your definition of community?
A community is a unity of people.
Okay. Everyone. Okay. Fine. Have you been impacted by your community?
Have I been impacted? Well, I don't choose to let communities determine my lifestyle and my fate and what I do. I'd say some things have changed since when I was living in Elgin, but I wouldn't say it's really had a major impact on me. I'm still living my life, still trying to be the most successful person I can be out here.
Okay. How would your life be different if you lived in a different city or town?
That's a good question. I don't think it really would be different. I mean, you'd probably have to worry about less things, but honestly, there's not as many things, or not as many bad things that happen, in Chicago as people really say. I mean, these things happen, but this is based on a population. If you compare the population of what it is now to other locations, you'll find that the crime is basically the same, which tends to happen if crime tends to happen if there's a big separation in wealth or if there seems to be a huge population.
Okay. So if you could change anything about your community, what would it be?
Oh, pollution for sure. I don't even want to touch the social injustices that happen and take place, but pollution is one of those major components. I mean, you see littering all the time. Or you sometimes you just walk by and you just see litter on the ground, So that would be one of the things that I would change. Is that what the question says? Something I would change?
About the community.
Yeah, pollution for sure. How are we going to get this together?
And why would you say that? Because, the streets would just be, cleaner.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to walk down a messy street, We all want to see a nice community. If everybody kept up with their community, if everybody kept up with their yard and their spaces and, wanted to keep a clean-looking location and everybody contributed to each components in different neighborhoods, such as the roads, or even just maintenance, then the city would look a lot better.
Would you just say that's in certain areas or
No,
or just everywhere in general?
Littering is going to take place anywhere in general, but there are some places that are more prevalent because there's less people maintaining them. We all pay taxes, whether we want to or not. We all pay taxes, and honestly, this service should be distributed evenly, and you can definitely see it on poorer areas. You find that they tend to have worse conditions, tend to be living underneath worse conditions.
Okay. If you could, no, I'm sorry. How do you think your community is viewed by others?
When you say community, I don't know if you're talking about on a larger scale or on a smaller scale. Are we talking about Chicago as a whole, because we can consider that a community? Are we talking about the community like my certain area? Because if we're talking about Chicago as a whole, what is the question? How's it viewed? It's
How do you think your community is viewed by others? And I guess it can be whatever community is you, whether it's at Chicago
a
or if you're
community is just a
talking
unity of
about
people. Yeah.
your race just being African American, like period. Like how do you think people view your community?
Oh, negatively. I mean, but the people that live inside it and buy the land, they view it as great. It's a great, profitable land. It's a very nice housing. Uh, so I guess it just really depends on the person. Some people might see opportunity, others might see downfalls. So, me personally, I think it's just like any other location. If you honestly think about it, you know, every location has their own specific things about them that make them a great location.
Okay. If you think this view is wrong or unfair, is there a way to change how your community is viewed by others?
Yeah, of course. Use an even scale according to population and size. And then if you do that and you do the proper calculations, you might find that crime is roughly the same. And you know, as media specialists and all those type of things, and people really involved in the media, they should really focus on large aspects rather than negative ones, rather than just the negative ones, just in general.
How? How?
Yeah, you know, focus about let's see, focus on the art. Yeah, focus on the art. Focus on all the beautiful things, as such as the beautiful places. Focus on the opportunities. Focus on the change that's being made ahead. These aspects and these type of community service related or just community activities will bring people together and show the world that Chicago is not such a bad place.
Okay. All cities have to deal with issues like violence. How does the issue of violence in Chicago compare to other major cities?
Oh yeah, this I think I've kind of already answered this, but you can't compare this. Compare a place that's populated and compare all the aspects that are negative. Big gaps between wealth. Compare that. Compare job opportunities. There are a lot of job opportunities, but then compare how many people are actually in those jobs. As far as race wise, not even race. Let's say ethnicity, because race doesn't exist. So let's say that when you start to make those comparisons, you'll have a better view on the situation at hand. But as of people just comparing the amount of crime, that's not a fair estimation or a fair comparison. So that answer is there is no answer to that. That's it.
Okay. So what are the top 3 issues / concerns that you would like to address and start a dialogue with your community, peers, neighborhood, Chicago? So what are the top 3 issues or concerns that you would like to be addressed by your community?
Well, I think one of the main ones is pollution. When you get past that, you'll have to talk about the separation wealth, and then when you make it to that, you can then talk about crimes, because crimes will go down if there's a better distribution of wealth. So all these units really bring a city into a better situation if they're controlled and fixed.
Okay. Controlled by who though? Just by the people that live here?
I mean, anybody can pitch in and make a help and make a change in the world, but mainly the people that live here. Those are the people that should really be trying to better this community because they live here.
Okay. If you were in charge of the media, what would you show? What would you do to change the perception and how people view you and your community? So what would you show? Like if you were like a news reporter or something, like what would you show to
all the programs? All the nice programs. I mean, there's so many programs, so many little workshops that you can go to, especially in Chicago. I would show things that show how people are bettering themselves.
The positive things.
Yeah, the positive aspects. There are negative aspects, but let's not focus on those. Let the people within that area, really try to pick up on those, because it's one thing to try to make a change, and it's one thing to just keep adding on to negativity. So I'd say focus on the positive aspects, which would bring new people in, more positive people, and those more positive people will have new ideas, and things will change as they do all the time.
Okay. So how do you see Chicago in the future?
Less populated. The population of Chicago is going
So you
down.
will see people moving out of Chicago?
Well, if things aren't changed, yes. I mean, population has already decreased, and I can only expect that it will continue to decrease as time goes by. Unless something new and extraordinary happens, then the population will continue to decrease. So once the news media starts, figuring out some better things to say about Chicago, or just when different activities start happening, and people actually know about them, this decrease in the population will continue.
So definitely you see it as a bad thing, Chicago not having a really promising future if it doesn't change its views and everything.
No, I mean, it was just the crime might decrease with the amount of people that are leaving.
Also, it's not really.
It's not a negative thing. It's not a negative thing, because whenever people come in, you get good people, you get bad people. Whenever people leave, you get good people, you get bad people that leave. I mean, it really just depends on how you're seeing it. Sometimes a decrease in a population might be better, because there's not as many people competing, but then someone can argue that there would be less opportunities available for people, because a lot of people have left. So I guess it really depends on the person. I don't really see anything negative about the situation, but you still got to know both points that people are going to make.
Okay, the more people, the more problem, huh? Okay, do you think it can be prevented?
What?
Oh, like you said, it can be prevented if things have started changing, correct?
Yeah. Things could be prevented if people or things start changing. If views were changed, perception were changed. Like any new location, like if you open up a park, right? For example, you open up a park.
Mm-hmm.
You start telling people about all the positive aspects, all the good things about the park, so more people come in. However, if everybody hears that, oh, that's a bad place to go, I mean,
they get shot up and stuff.
Yeah. That's when you don't want to come by. So I mean, as long as people can change other people's views, or at least try to better the situation, then that's that.
Okay. So, is it important for us to keep an ongoing dialogue of the most important issues facing our community? Like, do you think we should always be talking about the issues that our community is facing?
How about less talk, more action?
I like that.
I like that. Yeah, less talk, more action. I mean, yeah, you should always talk about it, but you should really be trying to figure out a solution. It shouldn't take years for someone to figure out a solution. It really depends on how big the situation is.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've been talking and there's no actions being made, I mean, what are you doing?
So you can walk the walk, but can you talk the talk?
Exactly.
Or is that the other way around?
I don't know.
So you can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? There we go.
Yeah, exactly. Can you make that change? That's the thing people need to think about. Now ask that question again, because I forgot it.
No, it's okay. We're done with the question. So, are there any other questions that I did not ask you that you feel I should ask others in your community?
No, I feel like a lot of these questions were repeated questions. I guess I gave some long explanations, and I feel like some of these are repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
As far as that, no, I think anybody would be fine with these questions. Maybe a little less.
And why you say that?
They're repetitive. I mean, they're repeating each other. They're running over each other. I find myself explaining what I explained.
Do you think we can make? How do you think we can make this better? By maybe shortening it, the questions, or
maybe make a question more. See, if you make a question too precise, people won't understand, or they'll get lost in the question. Just thinking about the question. So maybe try to focus on the main point behind the question.
Making it more personal, you think, or less impersonal?
Well, if you make something more personal to a person, they're more likely to give a longer response. So if you're looking for long responses, then yes. And they're more likely to care because it's personal. But I wouldn't say anybody would like to answer long and personal questions. This is supposed to be like,
depends on the question.
It really depends on the person.
Thing.
Some people aren't comfortable answering personal questions. So maybe trying to, a couple of those questions can be made into one question, perhaps.
Okay. Any additional comments about this process? Your experience? What we can do to improve this process for future interviews? What was successful? What needs work? Anything?
No, I have no comments to make on this.
No questions.
No comments, no questions. I don't.
Okay.
I'm good.
Are there any unplanned questions that you asked to continue the conversation?
No, I think we're pretty much done here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
No problem.